Welcome to Price Plow.
What's going on YouTube, Price Plow Nation, PE Science fans, and anyone looking for an alternate theory on some diet stuff? My name is Mike Roberto. I'm the founder of Price Plow. We're a tech and media company that covers the dietary supplement industry's news, reviews. We do some interviews. I'd like to get into a lot of diet research lately. Now, in a previous video, and I've kind of been alluding to this, I started talking about autumnal eating. And what really kicked it off, me talking about it on the blog, was this weight gainer product right here, PEScience Select Smart Mass. So you could link back to the video where I actually review it and I talk about the flavors. The peanut butter cookie flavor is by far my favorite. And those products were sent for free, so I got to disclaim all that. But anyway, what I started talking about, right when this product came out, I realized that this was a weight gainer that was done in a way that I would do it if I were a low-fat dieter. A lot of people are like, going to say, oh my, Mike, you're a low carber. Yes, I am a low carb dieter and high protein, moderate fat. I've kind of switched things up a little bit, and we're going to get into that. So anyway, I am a low carb dieter typically. So why would I review Select Smart Mass? Why would I endorse such a product? First off, I know that there's a lot of low-fat dieters out there. And second off, the low-carb community has to be honest with ourselves. We have to agree that, listen, there is a plethora of research showing that low-carb diets work for all sorts of metabolic and disease purposes and states and all that stuff. But metabolically, low-fat diets have just as much good research. There's plenty of good things. To me, the danger happens right smack dab in the middle. And for two reasons. First off, I believe that when people have hands on everything, that they kind of forget to eat protein. But your body, and we're going to get into this in a separate video, it's called protein leverage. Your body is going to get its minimum amount of protein whether you like it or not. And basically your body's like, listen, I need essential amino acids. They are essential because your body can't synthesize them itself, and it's going to get them whether you like it or not. Whether it comes from 4 tubs of ice cream or from 1 steak. Obviously, I believe the steak's a lot healthier. So when you have all things on limits, think about the most delicious junk foods that you cannot stop eating. Potato chips, pizza, ice cream, just the garbage like that. And the reason is, first off, there's no protein inside. So breakfast cereal, for instance, there's some protein in the milk, but basically you're eating, and then maybe eventually you get full, eventually you get enough protein in. So they're not prioritizing protein. Eventually, then you'll have enough ice cream to have protein satiate, because protein is the most satiating macronutrient. Second though, the bigger problem is that this is fat storage mode. This is what is known as autumnal eating. And we're going to talk about the squirrels and their hibernation. Take a look at the macronutrients of an acorn. It's high in fats, and it's high in carbs, maybe moderate, low to moderate in the protein category. What this means is this is great for the squirrels who are about to go and hibernate, because they need to put on fat that they can slowly burn throughout the long winter, when they're going to have very limited, not no food, but very limited food. Fat gainer mode. In nature, find me other foods or fuel sources that have fats and carbs mixed. There's another one. It's called breast milk. The one time when you want to get that baby into survival mode, you need to survive. I got this little 6-pound little creature here that's basically useless. We need to give it fats and carbs, fatten you up, because we need to keep this thing warm. We need to keep this thing surviving. And breast milk has a ton of other stuff, obviously. If you're not breastfeeding in this day and age with as much research as we have, then shame on you. But anyway, breast milk has high carbs in the form of lactose and a lot of fats. All sorts of like essential fatty acids, essential that your body needs them. And protein is actually on the lower side of things. It's like 6%. It's like not that much. And that's what formulas are modeled after. And I was looking into this, I was like, these formulas are garbage. Well, guess what? That's kind of what breast milk is, because we're trying to get the babies to gain fat first. All the essential stuff, give them a little bit of just whatever, as much energy density as possible. Give them the carbohydrates, and what happens is you have a lot of the energy coming from a gram of fat, and then you have a blood sugar and insulin spike coming from the carbohydrate. What that does is tells your body, store this fat. You only need so much energy to actually refill, like post-workout. Right now, post-workout, to refill your glycogen stores. After that, what are you going to do? I've already worked out. I'm not going to do a whole lot. I'm going to sit here at my desk. After that, you're basically telling your body, if I put fats and carbs together, spike my blood sugar, spike my insulin, I have all this energy floating around. Guess what? Your body's got to store it. You're not just going to like breathe it out. You might, yeah, you do breathe out a lot of your energy and everything, but you're not going to breathe and poop it all out. Your body's like, no way, dude. It's clearly it's fat bulking season. It must be October. And that is bulking season. That's autumnal eating. And that's why I am very, very diehard about keeping the fats away from the carbs. Now, I'm happy to go and look at this is a low, so what I'm doing right now is I'm reviewing, I just reviewed a low-fat weight gainer with no added fats, no oils, none of those thickeners, none of that stuff that adds fat. So this is for the low-fat dieters. But what about me, being a low-carb dieter? How do I properly review this? And that's the question. So I tested my blood sugar levels right before I had a full serving's worth of it. And I tested the 3 different flavors that we have. And my blood sugar was at 98. My ketones were at 0.6. And I am in a post-workout state. I tried to wait just long enough to get my blood sugar back under 100. And I knew my ketones were around 0.5. As I've gotten into the whole fat adaptation, and as I'm eating more meat, I've never been more connected with my body than I am now. I knew what my numbers were going to be without even saying anything, which I thought was awesome. So if I believe this theory of autumnal eating, we're basically mixing all the cheap carbs and the cheap fats together, like a lot of these weight gainers that other ones have, and all this garbage food, ice cream and all that stuff. If that is fat bulking season, well, yeah, typically I am a very meat heavy, low carb dieter myself. But what if I want to have carbs? What if I do want to get a little bit of a pump going? I can already kind of feel it, to be honest with you. Get a little bit of pump going. What if I want to get a moderate calorie amount of carbohydrate with protein? Got to prioritize the protein. This product has protein in it. What do I do? And so when I say you got to keep fats and carbs away, how far away do I need to keep them? Hours, days, weeks, months? Only in October? And the answer is that's what I don't know, and that's what I'm experimenting with a little bit today. So I just had 60 grams of carbohydrates. Now this is a cool product because it's a low GI carbohydrate source, and yet fast absorbing, low GI is where most of the carbs are at. And it's a P starch known as Carb 10 from Compound Solutions. They have some research, but it's not fully open. I call on them always to unleash that research. Tim Ziegenfuss, I think he was the researcher on there, very well-known person. It would be great to see that data. Anyway, so it's a low GI fast-absorbing carbohydrate paired with protein. Only 3 grams of fat, though, I had against 60 grams of carbohydrates and 40 grams of protein. So not a ton of caloric energy because we kept fat out of the equation. So the question is, how long will it take me? I'm not worried about ketones right now. I'll deal with all that. I'm not taking any. Took no glucose disposal agents. I had no chromium, none of that in my system. How long does it take me to get back to 100 or less blood sugar level? And at that point, I think it's safe for me to get back onto my fatty steak meat eating ways. Enjoy the insulin spike, enjoy the glycogen refill, and try not to overdo it with too much fat storage. And this is going to be a tinkering thing. Honestly, this experiment may be best, and I will eventually be getting with a continuous blood sugar monitor. But this is my first kind of bro science-y based video where I talk about, and I'm not going to be studying a lot of studies or anything like that. I talk about this whole autumnal feeding. The people who are all about calories in versus calories out, yeah, that works for weight loss. But when it comes to body composition, tell me this. There is a hormonal component. If I am constantly slamming my body with sugar, at some point, I'm going to have such elevated insulin, you cannot oxidize fat. The high amounts of insulin, they at least downregulate fat oxidation to a very great extent because they're actually storing fat. The insulin game does matter. Hormones do matter. Now, where we're noticing is that some people, and I have a feeling that I'm more like this, I need to get the blood test. Some of us simply have bigger and longer insulin spikes than others. Now, we could use blood sugar as a proxy for that because blood sugar is something that's easy to measure. I got this, I got these guys, done and done. Insulin, not so much. You have to go and get a lab test done, And that's something that I think is worth doing. What you could do is take a 2-hour blood glucose challenge where you test your blood sugar and insulin while you're fasted. Then they challenge you with 75 grams of glucose. And then 2 hours later is really the best statistical mark, but you can test as many times as you want probably. 2 hours later, you test your insulin and blood sugar again. And if your levels are not normal at that point, then you've got a problem. You are insulin resistant, and basically large amounts of carbohydrates are just gonna sit in your system, wreaking havoc, exhausting your pancreas, because your body is going to need to pump out tons of insulin and tons of insulin. Your cells are insulin resistant. They're like, I don't want any more sugar in my cells. Some people, and it doesn't matter, you don't have to be fat for this to happen. Asian people, for instance, they don't get fat, they just get diabetic. And that's what happens. Your body says, I don't want any more sugars. You got blood sugar floating around. Your pancreas is like, get this stuff out of the bloodstream, pumps out more insulin, more insulin, more insulin. And that insulin is what causes the damage. So that's why I like to skew on the side of lower carb. However, carbohydrates there's some benefits to having some carbohydrate. If I can have the best of both worlds, I think that's where it's cool. And the obvious benefit of having carbohydrate is performance enhancement. If anything, it's a performance enhancing drug. So that's what I'm messing with today. And I'm having a good time. And quite honestly, I took no stimulants. It's been a while since I've had 60 grams of carbohydrates, and I'm kind of cruising up a little bit. I can feel it. It feels like I had a little, a good cup of coffee. And that's what I enjoy about this. So the question is, can I have the goods with that without getting too much of the bads, which is the fat storage? Because typically when I eat the fat and the carb together, I get it's fluffy. I get dad bod. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. So I got the timer set. Let's see where we're at now. And in 42 minutes, we'll be back and we will be testing my blood sugar. I'm thinking it might take 2 hours or so, but I'm not going to eat any more fats until my blood sugar is back under 100. Until then, I'm going to be at my desk. And so basically, my line of thinking is this. Prioritize protein always. Calories are important, but you can get away with some stuff if you start to know how to manipulate things. But calories for weight loss, obviously, very important. Protein, I think, is even more important than anything. Prioritize protein. Then after that, low carb versus low fat, I do think you got to pick one for the majority of the time. Reason being, because if everything's on limits, unless you are just like, you're a nut and you know how to track everything and you're super awesome, if everything's on limits, that bag of chips will sneak up on you. And they hit those bliss points so good. They add the salty, they add the sweet, they add the carbs, they add the fats, and it tastes so damn good. They even tell you, you can't eat just one. Next thing you know, you've eaten a whole bag of chips and you've had like 4 grams of protein. Now you're like really screwed. I think you got to stay away from that for the majority of time at least. But every October it's fun to get into fat bulking season. Hey, it's the harvest. Anyway, so that's where I'm going with this, is one or the other. But if you want to do a little flip-flop, keep them away from each other. But how long? I don't know. 2, 3, 4 hours? We'll find out. And it depends on, the glycemic index of the foods you ate. I just had some low GI stuff. So we'll find out. That's today's experiment. Either way, I'm doing this in a separate video because I want to talk about my theory here. A lot of this isn't like really cited by research, but you start looking at like, how do we fatten up a cow when we're doing grain-fed cows, which you may disagree with, that's fine. How do you fatten up a cow? There's a whole science to this. They don't do calories in, calories out, because they know exactly how to fatten up a cow. You find the perfect mixture of a moderate protein, higher fat, higher carb kind of grain feed, and there's a whole science behind this. So why are you treating yourself like a cow that's getting fattened up for the slaughter? Why are you treating your body like a baby who's just trying to survive and get as fat as possible for the next few months? Why are you treating yourself like a squirrel who's trying to save its life because you know you're not going to have food around? Guess what? Our bodies will do the same thing because they know that when the winter comes, food's gone. That's what your body still thinks, evolutionarily. Guess what though? We live in civilization and we don't need to worry about that. So stop treating your body like you're about to go into hibernation mode, because the fact of the matter is that you're not. Keep the carbs away from the fats. That is my thesis to you today to think about. Otherwise, you're just going to treat yourself like a fat cow getting ready for the slaughter, and that's literally what they are doing. So I'll see you in 40 minutes from now, and we'll see where my blood sugar levels are, and hopefully this doesn't take forever. You know what? I'm breaking in at 30 minutes because it's only fair to see where exactly we're at 30 minutes in. 116, not bad. This stuff really is low GA. That was 30 minutes. I'm impressed. Now, did that mess my ketones up? These ketone strips are not cheap, but whatever, for the sake of YouTube. As expected, ketone drop. Don't need to produce them if I got plenty of sugar floating around, but not too much. Let's see what happens in the next 30 minutes. All right, we're 1 hour in, and quite honestly, I have not been craving carbs or anything until I walked right over here where I have the little remnants of the chocolate cup, and it smells so good that now I want more. But I've been doing good. It's also time for me to re-up caffeine. I've only had 150 milligrams of caffeine, and it's noon. Usually I'd like a little bit more by now, so that's what we need to get going, but I'm not going to mess up this test, so we're just going to have to wait it out. The goal here is to get under 100. I was at 116 30 minutes ago. Are we dwindling back down? Oh, I'm stuck. I'm stuck. So might as well just do another ketone test. My guess was that it was going to take 2 to 3 hours, and so we're going to be testing on the hour at this point, maybe every 45 minutes. I'm thinking that I went down even more. Like if I still have the blood sugar floating around, my ketones are probably getting exhausted. I'm going to call a 0.2 here. All right, we're stuck here, and that's okay because I haven't really trashed my body. It doesn't seem like that's a very, very positive thing for this product review. But now we're talking about the whole anti-autumnal eating. We need a better name for that. But either way, what we want to do is just see how long this takes. I'll be back in 45 minutes, so we are at the 1 hour mark now. Well, I just don't learn my lesson because you would have thought I'd clean up this mess here because this smells so good, and I didn't. We are a little bit over an hour, 45. And I'm thinking, I'm starting to get hungry for food again. Haven't been craving the rest of those shakes over there, even though it smells really good over here. Where's my blood sugar gonna be? 115. It's like I'm literally living the exact chart that is in the, I'll just show it up, the Carb 10 literature. They have this chart where like the blood sugar stays level, and that is literally exactly what's happening to me right now. You know what? I'm not even gonna waste the ketone strip. We're gonna keep this guy right here and save it because it's gonna be around the same and it doesn't matter. We're looking at blood sugar, so we'll see you in another 45 minutes. All right, we're at the 3 hour mark. I just cleaned up a little while ago. Not that anyone cares, but I cleaned. Blood sugar, if this is at 115, I'm gonna be very annoyed with my body at this point. I'm not totally expecting to be at 100. This 115 business is getting a little crazy. Wow. This is funny. This is like literally exactly what that graph is showing, like I said last time. All right, we're gonna wait all the way to 4 hours. I'm gonna get a little bit of sunshine right now outside though, so hopefully it doesn't throw off, but hey, life's gotta go on. We are eventually gonna eat again. 4 hours in, and it was windy outside here. So let's see where we're at. I've kind of lost faith in my body, and this is why you can kind of tell why I prefer to be in ketosis. Now granted, 115 is a regular blood glucose score, but we typically want to see like our bodies get back to normal eventually. And there we go. I'm going to consider that 4 hours. I'm going to consider that back to normal as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to say 4 hours, 15 minutes. Okay, we got to go to ketones. That's what I was going to do. Don't clean your finger. Blood. Got to prick this thing hard enough to get blood for the glucose, which doesn't need much blood, but the ketone meter does want a good fair amount of blood. I usually do that off camera. 0.4, maybe? Back up a little bit. Oh, hey, all right, I'm back into ketosis. Now, ketosis can technically be, as long as I got a few ketones in there, we're good to go. So that's cool. 4 hours, let's just say, is my mark for taking on 60 grams of carbohydrate and then digesting it, absorbing it, doing whatever I gotta do. I don't feel like I've added any fat storage. I have drank more water than I normally do, and that's not surprising given that the glycogen uptake requires a fair amount of water. So overall, this is just a one-off. This is an N=1 experiment. I think you can kind of see some of the effects though when people are snacking all day. So two things. First off, I think you can see why I think this is a pretty cool supplement. This is not the supplement review side of the video, but it never really egregiously spiked my blood sugar, especially for having just taken 60 grams of carbohydrate. And a lot of that is to the protein blend that came with it. There's a slow and a fast digesting protein blend, and there's also the carb 10. So that's the cool thing. Second, you can kind of tell why I like to skew towards lower carb. I think that this was kind of, in my opinion, a semi-failed glucose tolerance test in a way. I took on 60 grams of carbohydrates and it took me 4 hours to deal with that. Now, for me, my days, like my eating window is almost half over and I've really only had about 400 calories. Like this isn't gonna work in terms of if I wanna keep my blood sugar low, and I want to eat, let's say 2,400 calories, it's not really going to work in terms of having like an intermittent fasting style window. And I like to have an intermittent fasting style window simply because if nothing else, I don't want to be eating every 4 hours. Now, if I took, six of these meals and I had it every 4 hours, first off, sleep's going to get in the way of that, of course. But if I had every 4 hours, 6 meals like this, I could keep my blood sugar at reasonable levels, at least with a quality carbohydrate source like this. The thing is that that's a pain in the butt. Like, I don't want to have to eat all the time. I actually enjoy intermittent fasting because I don't always have to worry about eating all the time. Whereas with this whole carbohydrate thing, you got to avoid the roller coaster. And so for me, at least, seeing that my body seems to be insulin resistant to a point. I don't think I've been keto for so long that it's due to like my body forgetting how to deal with glucose. It's just that I'm not that good at dealing with glucose. And I'd like, thankfully, thank Mark Sisson that I found you in like 2007, way before a lot of other people did, and went down the low carb, paleo-ish path. Never, I was a little bit late on the keto game itself, but that's okay. Well, I realized in a very important time in my life when I was not able to, I was starting to get dad bod way early, 24 years old or so, and I was not able to handle carbohydrate as well as I could unless I was swimming a monstrous amount, which I'm not currently doing. The way around that for me was to get rid of carbohydrate. I obviously have some sort of issue with insulin resistance, in my opinion. I'd like to get more official tests. This is kind of a one-off. So, kind of cool on this product, but bad on me, but good because I've kind of figured out what works best for me. Now, can this be worked around if I do want to take down carbohydrate? Yeah, I think I just did it. And then what I'm gonna have to do is sit around. Now, what's cool is that I wasn't getting any carb cravings. I never felt a spike I never felt the spiking crash. And that's exactly what I wanted from this supplement. Had I done a whole 60 grams of sweet tarts, I don't think that would have happened. So there's, a straight up dextrose glucose challenge, I think I'd have a lot more issues with, especially with those 2-hour glucose tolerance tests. At the 2-hour mark, that's statistically where you can figure out if you have an insulin resistance problem or not. More often than not, the statistics show that 2 hours is a good mark. I was the exact same thing at 2 hours here than I was before. So overall, I think that I'm okay with carbohydrate if you have enough of a window around it and don't get sucked in or have to do it over and over and over. But right now, I'm low on my calories and I need to go and just load up on proteins and fats. If I were to do a low-fat, high-carb diet, then I think I would just be cruising on too high a blood sugar too long, too much insulin, causing too much damage, and eventually something bad happens, whether it manifests in the form of diabetes or cancer or dementia way later on. There's all these things seem to be connected. And it's not just blood sugar. I really think it's the insulin that causes that problem. I'd rather stay away from that. Could be a lot of things that happen. It seems like, to me, this processed food that we deal with is not as well constructed as this supplement here. And I want to keep all that stuff far away from my body. But when I carb up, it's got to be carbs and protein alone, because I wouldn't have wanted my elevated blood sugar and elevated insulin to be taken down to 800 to 1100 calories of food that I often have when I'm doing a high-fat steak and egg style breakfast. So now I can go and have my high-fat steak and egg style breakfast, and I don't think I'm going to have a crazy insulin spike. And this is what I typically do to keep myself lean. But if I do want to use carbohydrate as a performance enhancement drug, then I think I can do it. 4 hours is going to be in my window, at least for 60 grams. Now, the other thing is maybe I just need a lower dose. And a lot of keto dieters don't really work with 60 grams of carbohydrate. They usually say like 50. I think you can get performance enhancement out of like maybe even like 20 to 40 grams. Let's just say like 25 grams of carbohydrates. You might get a little bit of something from there. And that's maybe where I should have gone, but I was reviewing a supplement that had 60 grams of carbohydrates. This supplement is going to be great for anyone who's young and can handle carbs like nothing, and but don't want to like get the spike and crash. This is where it's at. For me, I'm probably going to like want lower doses of it, and then I'm happy to go. So I've learned a lot of things with just one day, and yeah, this is just a one-off. I'm not going to do a second of this exact test. It would be great to see if I worked with a glucose disposal agent. I think this would have happened faster, 2 to 3 hours maybe. There's a whole lot of things that we could test here, and maybe I'll come back to this supplement and use this as my base. I don't think I'm going to do it with 60 grams of carbohydrate though. Anyway, this is Mike with PricePlow. I thank you for watching. At the end of the day, I'm very excited about this like theory on autumnal eating. I'm very excited that I think that there's something in the middle that we can glue these two like warring factions together. And as long as we're not doing all the crap at the same time, which is what I try to avoid right now, and successfully did in my opinion, then we're gonna be good to go. Now I'm a little bit low on caffeine as well, so that is, honestly, I had no like desire for more carbohydrate. I had a desire like, oh man, it's caffeine time, so I'm gonna go have some coffee. Anyway, please subscribe to the channel. Let's do a little bit more stuff like this. I gotta get a continuous blood glucose monitor because this is really fascinating to me, and I want to keep my blood sugar low, but I want to see how much I can push the limits of protein and carbohydrate without having to become what's known as the stupid butter chugger, because I'm not into putting butter into coffee for absolutely no reason. You got plenty of fat on your body. You don't need to add more to your coffee. But you need protein, and it's kind of cool, if you're an athlete at least, to use carbohydrate as a performance enhancing drug. As for everyone else who's just doing regular old exercising and not like aggressive training, I still don't think you really need carbohydrate at all. It's just an addiction. You don't need it. There's no carbohydrate requirement whatsoever. But if you're a regular person who does nothing, or if you just do regular old exercising, I think it's holding yourself back, and I think it's eventually going to cause damage. But if you're an aggressive athlete, hell yeah, go for it. All right, my name is Mike Roberto. Thanks for watching, and we'll make a link back to the whole supplement review that we're talking about here. But overall, for me, 60 grams of carbohydrates with 40 grams of protein and only 3 grams of fat, so that's negligible. 4 hours it took me to clear out, and that's where I end with my autumnal eating experiment day 1 here. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Welcome to PricePlow.